Hey, welcome back everybody. It's Alan Smith. I want to thank you for tuning in today and watching. And we're going to be talking about a new topic that I've been getting asked about concerning Flames of War mini book, hardback book, Armies of Late War. Yes, I bought this a while back. This has been out, so we're going to talk about that. Desert Rats, Fighting First, Armored Fist, Afrika Korps, Late War unit cards. Late War unit cards, these are still in the wrapper. I haven't even opened them yet. I got Fighting First, and if you open this box, they're still in the plastic, right? You think I'm invested in this game just maybe a little bit? Okay, let's get started on this topic. The new Late War books are coming out. We're talking the whole revamp of D-Day, right? The whole D-Day thing, Late War, that's where it starts really, right? In our Eastern campaigns, starting with probably Kursk, Battle of Kursk, when the tide started to turn, maybe even go back to Stalingrad. Now, you guys have to remember, I'm not trying to just speak to you guys who've been playing Flames of War since version 2, like me, version 1, some of you, version 3, a lot of you. I'm talking to guys that might be stumbling across this video who's just saying, I like World War II, I want to do gaming in World War II, I want to get into this gaming thing. You know, I'm kind of getting tired of 40K. I'm kind of getting tired of all these board games. I really want to get more serious about this whole gaming thing, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to get me some information on World War II games. Now there's some other game systems out there. We're not going to talk about that on this video. We're going to talk about the new Flames of War Late War stuff that's going to be being unleashed, okay? This is the controversy, you know. First of all, version 4 did not go over as well as intended. You can go back and look at my older videos. I had some issues with it as well. It's been a couple years, we moved past that. I have, anyone that watches the channel on a regular basis knows that I have moved on to Battle Group. Well, not completely moved on. I still have a soft spot for Flames of War. That was my first World War II love, as it were. I almost bent my mini book. All these books, and I have another case out here, guys, that is all of the old stuff, okay, that I've collected since my son was this tall and the two of us started playing Flames of War together. Go back, look at my older videos, you'll see some of the content from a while ago, 4 or 5 years ago, to know that I've had a ton of fun with Flames of War, tons and tons and tons. But like what this channel is about my gaming and hobby journey, okay? It's about nothing else. The things I'm currently doing, the things I'm currently working on, the things I'm currently interested in. And like I've said before, when the Gamer's Den is complete, I want to be open to do just about any kind of game on this channel, which is why I want to stick with the moniker gaming. I even want to be open to using board games, if I so choose, right? I don't want to be locked in to 1 or 2 game systems. I don't want to get locked into 1 or 2 genres, okay? So this channel is all about my journey, my personal journey, the things that I am interested in, the things that I'm doing. Now, I also want to connect with you guys, so as we talk about this together today, I want you to feel free to put comments below, keep them civil, be nice. No name calling, you know, Phil Yates is a nice guy. And we have to accept that, yes, game companies are not perfect. Imagine that. Because why? Because they're being operated by people, and us as people, we are fallible. We make mistakes, we sometimes say the wrong things or do the wrong things, or we come across the wrong way. We intend for something to happen that doesn't go that way, it goes this way. And trust me, for a guy that has owned his own business since 1995, there's a big learning curve in running a business, and there's missteps and there's there's all kinds of things that go on. The main point that I'm trying to make here is we can't expect game companies to be perfect. They make missteps. They do things that don't necessarily turn out the way that they intended. Okay, so let's start with the beginning of version 4. That's where this whole story starts. From what I understand and what I have come to grasp with is that one of the main reasons they revamped version 4 was they wanted to get new players into the hobby, which is World War II tabletop gaming. Because from what I understand, and I have it from reliable sources, that right before version 4, a couple of years before version 4, the sales for Flames of War was really starting to go down. They had pretty much played out World War II. They had done the Battle of Berlin book. They've done the Battle of the Bulge, which I have. I have all those books out there. Okay, so it was starting to play itself out. So that's why when they did revamp with version 4, the first genre they went with was with the mid-war period, because they really didn't really address that a lot in the old version 3, version 2 rule books. And I can only speak for version 2 and version 3. That's when I started to play. I have no experience with version 1. So that said, this is kind of how this whole thing is played out. And as a new guy, if you're just stumbling onto this, don't get discouraged, right? These rule companies and the companies that make these games, every 5 to 10 years, they tend to have a new version of the rules. So they're going to try to clean up any ambiguities in the words that are used in the paragraphs on describing certain parts of the rules to try to make it better. They may try to clean up different things in the system that weren't working well. And in the case of Flames of War, one of the problems they were starting to have, as well as the declining sales, as the rule system started to get kind of played out with the kits, etc., is they were starting to have some problems with the lists and building the armies. So you got the Germans, the Americans, let's say, and you build a list of 5 tanks, this many guys, this or whatever it is, as a new player, and this list building was starting to get spammed. And you know, as a video gamer, and I know probably a lot of you watching, I've a lot of experience playing video games. It's the same kind of thing. You can look at it that way, that there's little tricks and little gimmicks and there's little loopholes, you know, just basically spamming the list so that it's really hard to beat. There's a lot of camping going on where, you know, if you're a video gamer, you know that the camping is an issue. So a lot of guys would just sit and, you know, just play defense, and it would stretch the games out, la la la. There's all these various intricacies that were going on in the tournament scene. I can speak to that because I was not involved in the tournament scene in the version 3. So enough of that said, it leads the owners and the designers, primarily Phil Yates, who is one of the primary inventors of the game system, to say, hey, we need a reboot. Okay, now let's look at another facet to this company. We've got Battlefront that produces Flames of War, and they also kind of on the side were developing a World War III, Team Yankee it's called. You may have heard of it. That was becoming very popular. It was based on a lower point system. Instead of like 1,500 to 5,000 points, it's based on 150 to 100, 150, 200 points. So where the units are just revalued at smaller points, okay? And they were starting to use a card system. So I got the cards here, and you can see the Soviet unit cards is what I've got here. So it basically gives you a synopsis of the unit. It has a picture of the unit. It tells you the values of the unit, like the movement, what it takes for this unit to kill something else or hit something else on the board, right? So they developed this card system, and that's where a lot of the games at that time, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, were moving more to using cards, okay? Now, this is the controversy will also, this backstory is going to spin into this new stuff that's coming out, because that's essentially what is happening and has been happening to Flames of War. Flames of War has been morphing into the game system that is similar to Team Yankee. It makes perfect sense when you think about it, because you can go from World War II to World War III. You can just buy new units, obviously, newer tanks, newer units, and you're going to be familiar with the rule system. It's going to be more seamless. So you can get started in World War II and go to World War III. You can go to World War III and say, hey, you know what, I want to play World War II. And still use a similar rule system that's going to work for both games. So all that said, it really does make sense. So they have finally worked out a lot of the new stuff for mid-war. Now they're going to do the late war stuff. Now, as I showed you initially, I'm going to dig it back out here for you. They already came out with an Armies of Late War to try to whet your appetite for older players like me. I always played late war. I did not play early war. I never played mid-war. I only played late war. So, that being said, what are my thoughts? What are my thoughts on this? My thoughts are, obviously, this is the next step. I'm happy for them. I think it's good for the new players. The old players are probably still fuming because they have all the older books that have the higher point system. They have there's some differences in the mechanics that version 3 players prefer. And my thought is, that's fine. You have the books, you have the tools necessary to just continue playing version 3. There's guys out there I know that are still playing version 2 and just having a good old time. So really, does it really have that huge of an impact on an older player like me? I've got a bunch of the old books. I've got, 6 bags of armies out there. I can just literally pick almost whatever I want off of the lists, and I can field those forces pretty much whenever I want. So that's fine. If you have the extra cash at some point in the future when the Gamers Den's done and I've got a new bookcase to fill up and etc., I'm going to have 2 nice big gaming tables set up. I'm going to have the levity. I can do whatever I want. So yes, I will probably get the new stuff. I'm going to play Flames of War again, because you know why? Because it's more simplistic to me. It's more of a game I can really just on a whim, if someone stops by, or my son comes home to visit, or my nephew comes home to visit from the military, I can throw up a game really fast with that rule system. Battle Group is more historically accurate. It's a little bit more in depth. It's not as cookie cutter. Let's use that term. Flames of War isn't cookie cutter totally either. There's, it's not just, what's a good word? Sorry, or some simple board game. I mean, it'll take a little bit of a learning curve to learn the game. But my thought on it is, it's totally fine. I'm totally for Battlefront and their business model, because I actually like their business model. I know there's a lot of guys out there, and I spoke to at a recent convention, Cold Wars. I heard things like, I hate Battlefront, right? I hate Battlefront. They're just money grubbers. Kind of the same comments you get when we talk about Games Workshop, right? It's expensive. They nickel and dime you. You've got all these different armies and books and cards, and I don't know that they've gotten. I'm not a big 40K guy, but I'm just using them as an example of the kind of griping that you hear. Look, as a guy who runs a small business, I'm not always trying to look for ways to make money, and I certainly don't try to, pull one over on anyone, certainly. But I do understand the fact that in this business, in the gaming business, it's nice to have all these tiered products and cards and things that you can buy that help generate extra revenue. Now, I want you to keep in mind, like these cards, the command cards, unit cards, they're not super expensive. I think these are like $10 and these are like $5, so we're not talking huge sums of money here. The other thing that Flames of War did, or Battlefront has done, starting with the release of version 4 in mid-war, is all plastics, okay? All plastics. They had to compete with Plastic Soldier Company, who now, from what we understand, now has the rights to Battle Group. So we'll see how this plays out with that game system. But Plastic Soldier Company produced a line in World War II, 15 millimeter figs that were substantially less expensive than the Battlefront. Now the Battlefront at the time was resin and metal. The miniatures, the little infantry dudes were in metal. The tanks were part metal, part resin. I always loved their kits. I thought they were great quality. I like the heavier stuff. So my tip to you is, if you still like the pewter, there's Old Glory, Peter Pig. There are companies out there that still make metal, pewter, infantry, tanks and stuff. That they're still out there, right? I think really they're reasonably priced for pewter. So you can still field a metal army if that's what you so desire. However, if you want to purchase kits that are less expensive, let's say you're a college student or you're fresh out of college or you've got a young family and the money is a little on the tight side and you only have, say, $100 a month to spend on your hobby, that's totally cool. There's resources out there for you as well. And that's what Battlefront recognized. If they're going to go for the younger audience, you know, the early 20s, mid 20s, late teens gamers who want to get into World War II 15 millimeter miniature gaming, they had to compete with Plastic Soldier Company, so that's where they came out with their plastics. So with the late war stuff, all the stuff that I would buy, you know, 5-6 years ago at my local hobby shop or even online, all that stuff's going to be plasticized. So, you know, your Soviet late war tanks, your German late war tanks, all those will now be introduced as plastic kits. They're even introducing a new D-Day plastic kit. Now, I've got some of the examples here. So when I first got version 4, I didn't have any Brits. I have not ever collected Brits, and I thought this is a great opportunity. I'll start with the mid-war Brits, and then I want to also at some point in the future, and I will, and I intend to do this, start collecting as part of my vast collection that I have here in the shop, adding on to late war Brits, okay? I even at some point in the future, I'm going to go after the Italians. I'm going to go after Romanians. I'm going to do more obscure type forces, right? Just for fun, right? Because I'm mainly a collector more so than a gamer at this point. So I want to constantly be building my miniatures collections over the years. And as we finish out the Gamer's Den, we're going to have more display cases full of goodies. I'm going to have places to store all my minis to build up this collection that I love. But this is the source of contention with a lot of the Battlefront haters out there with the new kits. And this, you'll notice, is the Brit unit. This is a command unit, mid-war desert, and I'm going to show you what the problem is. See what that dude's doing? He's that bendy, almost like a rubbery plastic. What were they thinking? And they're not backing down off of this decision. Here's the problem. It's not so much as the material. It flexes a little bit. Over a long period of time, I don't know with the way the paint, if you're not flexing them and moving them, it should be fine. The paint should be stable and not flake off. I also always use a good quality top coat to protect the miniature. So I think we're good on that. What my beef was always with these newer kits is the friggin' mold lines. And that soft material, even if you use a brand new X-Acto blade and you're trying to scrape off the mold lines that you would traditionally do with the side, you know, using your blade on the side, it like frays, and it's very hard to get. If you're a perfectionist and you like it to look as best as you can, it's kind of frustrating getting the mold lines off. Now I've heard that they've improved the process. Some of the newer kits, it's very minimal mold lines. I don't know. I haven't purchased any. These were ones that were just when they just released the new kits for version 4 mid-war, and I had that issue. Now I got them, so I really, they turned out great. The detail on the models is amazing. The wash that I use, the washes get down nice. It just really turns out nice once you get those mold lines off. And if you use a file, it just makes it even worse, right? So, and here's it says here I completed this one on 6/24. I typically date my pieces as I finish them, just for posterity's sake. And you see I got all the nice unit decals, right, on this little Stuart, right? So he's a fun kit. He was plastic, and what I did on these was I filled these with sand to give them some extra weight. You can use washers, whatever you want to scrounge up. Some guys are packing them with clay. You can get some cheap modeling clay and fill the interior cavities with clay. So there are some tricks and tips you can do to get the weight like the pewter pieces and still get the affordability of having the plastic kits. The plastic kits are easy to put together. The mold lines were minimal. I say they were great quality. And of course, you know, I've got, as usual, I keep my turrets magnetized. The old kits used to come with magnets. The new kits did not, so, but you can easily get online. Battlefront sells the magnet kits. You can get them a lot of places online, and they're dirt cheap. So I highly recommend it. I like the little decals. Get it on this autofocus here. The decals on the front. Good kits. I really like them. And here is a universal carrier for the Brits. All right. You can see how good the detail is, right? And they also use these in late war. I've already got some painted up with the British green. So I've already started a little bit of the Brits late war, but I'm looking forward to that. You know, like I said, just to flesh out my collection. So that's the whole other aspect of this hobby. So late war, the new late war stuff, totally fine with it. I get it. It's the next progression that you're going to take, especially newer players. Now, here's the thing with Flames of War. That is their really strong suit. Their cards are amazing. The information, the photos, the quality of the cards. I'm going to go ahead and open up this Soviet box. Armies of Late War. So they've been trickling this stuff out now, guys, for a couple years. It's not like all of a sudden there's late war stuff. They have been trickling out stuff for the late war players to start shifting over. You know, you can still build your army off of an old book, an old late war book, and still, yeah, see, this is still in the plastic, but I can still show you, you know, how good quality these cards are. Okay. They're very high quality. They're shiny. They've got a playing card feel. They're going to hold up for years and years and years of use. Like I said, they're inexpensive. They're $10 or $12. You've got great information about the unit. Try to get so we're not getting a lot of glare there, right? So, except for the bendy little dudes, the bendy little infantry guys, and you know, the little guys that will come with your artillery units, obviously. Everything else is very high quality, very high quality. Now, we're going to get into the next controversial topic I want to hear you guys comment about, and that's historical accuracy. That is, everybody's all over this. Okay, Mark Landymore, House of Hengeist. Okay, he's out there. Hi, Mark. I watch his. If you don't know Mark, I strongly suggest you search for him on YouTube. He does great battle reports, and he has some strong opinions on the new Flames of War, especially with the historical accuracy, the list building. Are the lists really accurate? And you know, this whole loggerhead. And my other friend, I'm going to give a shout out to, is Rob Rhodes, who has introduced me to Battle Group. He's very heavy into Battle Group. In fact, I'm going to be traveling this coming weekend. I've got it up here on the screen. Wednesday, June 12th through Sunday, June 16th. You will need to, if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, or you want to go to the Columbus, Ohio area during those times, you're going to go to Origins Gaming Convention. And that Saturday, him and Jason Rowe, who also is a part of the History to War Games podcast, they are doing a demo game for Battle Group, which is going to be centered on the Pacific battle Tarawa. Super stoked about that. I love, I've not ever played Japanese versus American Marines. It's going to be a hoot. It's going to be great. And Mark and Rob have one thing, well, many things, but one main thing in common, and that is they spend a lot of time developing the game before you play it. So we're talking about the historical accuracy of the layout of the battlefield, if it's a battle in a town, which Mark does these amazing, and so does Rob, but some of the stuff he does, he spends a month, 2 months, 3 months literally preparing the game. And that's what we're going to do here in the game shop, because both of those guys have influenced me to want to do tables like that, where you're really spending some time prepping the game, then having people over to play. So it's 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3. The group participation games are amazing and super, super fun. And I really see the value in that. So you learn so much more about the battle or the scenario, and really preparing the actual units that were there, right? Down to the finest detail. And that is where I'm heading to. I'm in that. I'm on board with that, okay? But I also see the fun in just being able to just throw a game together, literally just putting up some hills, throwing out some trees. You get 5 tanks, I get 5 tanks, let's fight, right? You can do that with Battle Group, certainly, and you can do that with your other Achtung Panzer, and there's Command Decision, and there's other games out there. Or you can still do those types of games. But that's the loggerhead with the older players, the seasoned players, is this list accuracy, battle accuracy, historical accuracy, right? Where Flames of War is going to be weaker in that department, right? And Battle Group and some of the other game systems out there are going to be stronger on that. But the game is going to be a little more complex. It's going to play a little slower, And Flames of War, they're really the new rules, just like Team Yankee. They want you to knock out a quick game in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours tops, even on a bigger game. With the way the rule system is laid out, you're going to be able to play a quicker game. Now, I guess if you're a guy in an apartment and you got limited space and you got to set up a table, that may be a consideration with what rule set you choose, because you're typically maybe wanting to play a quicker game. You don't really want the game to drag out all day or over multiple days. So I plan on having one of my tables is going to be a more developed scenario game, and the other table is going to be kind of left over to do just about whatever on a whim. Is kind of where I'm going with this, with my gaming situation. So with the late war stuff, as it comes out, there's more stuff coming out. I think we have a great opportunity, Mark, Rob, us more seasoned gamers, is to pick up some great kits, right? Like the D-Day kit and some of these other kits they're going to release, where we can get them and incorporate them into other rule sets. We don't have to use the Flames of War rules. But I also think that, Battlefront is a much more solid financially these days. I know they went through some rough patches. They got into, what was it, Conflict or Dust and Dust Tactics, and they kind of got bogged down in that a little bit, which was a revised, if you guys never heard of the game Dust, it's kind of like post-World War II what if type thing. Like Conflict is another game system out there that's kind of the same thing. What if the Germans developed ray guns and spaceships and things like that. So anyway, they've had their missteps, that's for sure, but I think they're a very solid financial company now, from what I understand. They've got some really successful, really good success with the new version 4. Finally started to get some traction, and especially they accomplished what they set out to do. They got the younger players. They've got a new breed of players come into the game. Now, they did force out some players who got huffed off and said, hey, I got all this stuff invested in this game and now you're changing it. And that's cool too. So that's, I guess, what I'm getting to. Different strokes for different folks, guys. Different strokes for different folks. Right now, I'm not into 40K, but that's the first game system I played back in college was 40K. Do I want to look at 40K in the future? Probably. Yeah, I would. I would like to look at it. Would I like to look at X-Wing more? I have some X-Wing. Would I like to develop that more? Sure, I would. So some people will say, I have no interest in that. That's fine. That is totally fine. And if you like to play with little card soldiers and you don't want to buy kits, that's totally fine too. Whatever floats your boat. But we need to respect each other and know that, you know, I tease, there's a guy on Facebook, on a Facebook group, Rob, you know who I'm talking about. And I always tease them, they're talking about 1/72 scale, and I said, oh, that's toy scale, you know, or 20 millimeter, oh, that's toy scale. There's really no, all kidding aside, you know, it doesn't matter what scale you game in. 28 millimeter, 15 millimeter, 6 millimeter, it's all what interests you. 15 millimeter is a great all-around scale. I'm finding for World War II, for Napoleonics, for American War of Independence, to Civil War, because it's a small enough scale you can play good sized battles, yet the detail on the miniatures is still pretty good, it's really good in some cases, and when you finish the army and you get it on the board, it's like, wow, it looks great. Sometimes if you go too small, in my opinion, and if you go smaller, you start to lose the detail, and sometimes the horses start to look like pigs. And sometimes the miniatures just don't look right. Sometimes the 6 millimeters look perfectly fine. There's guys out there that, you know, they game in 4 millimeter, right? What are they, it's like, do they just paint it red, paint it black, and then just dot, 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 and they're done? So that is the advantage if you go to a smaller scale. Even 15 millimeter scale, guys, for Flames of War, it's a little less expensive than, let's say, going with 28 mil armies. You're gonna spend typically more money on the miniatures. You're gonna get more miniatures with 15 millimeter for your money, and they're easier to paint. I will say that they're easier to paint. So I hope I put everybody's mind at rest out there about the new late war Flames of War stuff. I think it's going to be fine. I think as we move forward, the new players will have fun. They'll play out the World War II stuff, and you might find that as they get more mature, they want more in-depth, historically accurate game systems and scenarios and tables that they want to play on. That's my supposition. I think that's what will happen. The ones that really enjoy it and really get into it, they're going to progress just like I did. I started with this, and then I moved to this, and I'm moving to this, and it's just part of the process. You know, in 10 years you might turn on this channel and I'm big into 40K. You just never know, right? You just never know. So but thanks for tuning in. I kind of want to get too long, as things already gone on long enough, but I just wanted to touch on a few things, give some foods of thought, especially for you new guys that are searching. What should I get? I hope this helps you some, but you know, there's tons of stuff out there. There's guys out there putting up regular battle reports, and you know, really do your homework. Don't do the plunge before you look, right? Don't jump before you look. You know, look it out, kind of see what your situation is, kind of see where you kind of want to go with this. What is your available space to play in? All those kinds of things. But I highly encourage you, this is an amazing hobby, whether it be World War II, Napoleonics, any type of historical game, or really even expanding into sci-fi and fiction games. It's still a great hobby. there's the painting, there's the building of the layout, there's setting up your table and what kind of battlefield you want to set up. There's that aspect of it for strategy. There's learning the rules. There's the rule strategy. There's the list building, which is building your armies. So it's very multifaceted, but like I've said on other videos, historical gaming is better gaming in the long run because you really are learning a lot. So thanks again, guys. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you on the next video. I want you to be on the lookout because, again, what we're going to do is we're going to do head-to-head with Flames of War in Battle Group. Ciao. See you next time.